a bony structure called as brain box or cranium, we used to say. And the brain include three: forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. There are three portions in the brain: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Let's talk about the forebrain. The forebrain include two olfactory lobes. The forebrain include two olfactory lobes concerned with the sense of smell. The two olfactory lobe concerned with the sense of smell. Next, the two cerebral hemispheres. The two cerebral hemisphere, you can see these are the cerebral hemisphere. The two cerebral hemisphere, they are going to control the voluntary actions. Then after, diencephalon. Diencephalon is perception of heat, cold, pain, integrity of autonomous nervous system. Means here, it is also going to control the autonomous nervous system. So, the forebrain include three: olfactory lobe, cerebral hemisphere, diencephalon. Olfactory lobe for the sense of smell, cerebral hemisphere control the voluntary actions of the body, and the diencephalon for the perception of heat, cold, pain, and integrity of autonomous nervous system. Let's talk about the midbrain. Forebrain, olfactory lobe, cerebral hemisphere, and diencephalon. Midbrain include optic lobes. There are two optic lobes we can see here, which are associated with the sense of sight. There are about two optic lobes. If we come to the human being, we have four optic lobes. We have four optic lobes. Ours is called corpora quadrigemina. Here, only two optic lobes we can see. This is a side photograph. You can see that particular optic lobes on the other side. The two optic lobes are present. What do you call it as? Corpora bigemina. The two optic lobes present here called as corpora bigemina. In case of human being, the same is called corpora quadrigemina. The same optic lobe said to be corpora quadrigemina. I am not doing much comparison with the human being here. When we go to the human, we compare frag because the brain is little complicated thing. That most complicated part, the human brain. So that how it is well developed, that we have to see. But basic parts are same. That is very interesting. Hindbrain includes cerebellum, which maintain the equilibrium. Cerebellum, which maintain equilibrium. Medulla oblongata, which is going to continue in the form of a spinal cord and helpful to control the involuntary movements of the body, like urinary bladder movement, like the peristaltic movements of the alimentary canal, that kind of things. What do you say? So in the involuntary portion. So that these are all about the parts of brain. Let's take a look. Let's take a look on here. What we are seeing till the time, that number one, olfactory lobes. Olfactory lobes. Number two, cerebral hemispheres. We call it as cerebrum. It will be in the form of two halves. That's why we can say cerebral hemispheres. Next, diencephalon. Diencephalon. Cerebral hemisphere, diencephalon. Optic lobes. Then optic lobes, then cerebellum. Medulla oblongata, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. Olfactory lobe, cerebral hemispheres, diencephalon, and optic lobes, cerebellum, medulla oblongata. Okay, medulla oblongata. Then these are all parts actually. These are all the parts of the brain. Let me show you first. These are olfactory lobes. They continues with cerebral hemisphere, which is actually the two halves. These two are the cerebral hemisphere, and this portion is diencephalon. Then after optic lobes, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. The rough diagram. Let me show you once again. Let me show you. Olfactory lobes. Okay, cerebral hemispheres, two halves. In case of human being, the two halves are connected by corpus callosum. Okay, then next, wait, I'll change the color. Oh, gone out. No matter. We'll draw it. olfactory lobes, cerebral hemispheres, that cerebral hemisphere, cerebrum we use it to say, and next optic lobes. These two are the corpora bigemina we use it to say. Then after that cerebellum, cerebellum. Then medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is going to continue in the form of spinal cord. So that's it. Olfactory lobe, cerebral hemisphere, diencephalon, optic lobes, cerebellum. Wait. Cerebellum. Again. And finally, medulla oblongata. Olfactory lobe, cerebral hemisphere, diencephalon or belongs to forebrain, optic lobes are belongs to midbrain, and the cerebellum and medulla oblongata are belongs to hindbrain. Forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Olfactory lobe for the sense of smell, cerebral hemisphere for voluntary action, and diencephalon for the perception of heat, chemicals, temperature, reproduction, metabolism, control of autonomic nervous system. Likewise, so many functions are there. Optic lobes, we call it as corpora bigemina, two optic lobes are present. Sense of sight. Cerebellum is doing the balance of the body. Medulla oblongata going to control the involuntary portions, involuntary control of the body. Involuntary organs are controlled by medulla oblongata. Okay, so these are all about the brain. We say brain. Next, we continue. This is the medulla oblongata. Passes out through the foramen magnum, the opening we say foramen magnum, and continues as spinal cord. Medulla oblongata that opens through the opening we call foramen magnum and continues as spinal cord. Yeah, it is enclosed in the neural canal of the vertebral column. In the vertebral column, the canal, the opening, what do you say? Neural canal. That means if this is the vertebral column, in the center of the vertebral column, the neural canal will be seen over. Through that neural canal, the spinal cord will run over. Okay, the spinal cord acts as a middleman between the brain and effectors. Between the brain and effector organ, whatever it is. That between the brain and effector, the spinal cord is acting as the middleman. It is going to act as a middleman. Okay. So that's the story of spinal cord and the special senses. The frog has sense organs such as the organs of touch, smell, and sight. The hearing, nothing but with our ears. Let's take a look and it. The well-organized structures among them are eyes. That means eyes are much developed in compared with any other sense organ. And internal ears are also, tympanum is there, isn't it? And the rest are cellular aggregation. Eyes are good, that a pair of eyes are there, well-organized eyes. And internal ears, as we said, tympanum is there, tympanum. Tympanum continues with columella, oris, line in general character, and that continues with the internal ear, cochlea, and semicircular, cochlea I should not say. The semicircular canals are present, semicircular canal, okay, development is okay. Okay, so the rest are, remaining are just cellular aggregations around nerve endings like this. Just cellular aggregations around nerve endings. That means they are very primitive. They mean to say they are very primitive. Except eyes and ears, the remaining are primitive. The skin is receptors of touch. Organs of taste are called taste buds that lie on the small papillae, of tongue. Organs of smell are a pair of nasal chambers. Organs of sight are a pair of eyes located in the orbits of the skull. Organs of sight are a pair of eyes located in the orbits of the skull. Eyes are protected by eyelids. The upper eyelid is immovable and the lower eyelid is folded and transparent nictitating membrane. This is very important to be remembered here, that for that lower eyelid is folded into a transparent nictating membrane, transparent nictating membrane. The retina of the eye contain both cone cells and rod cells. We remember you learned in earlier classes, cones for light, day vision and rods for dim vision. Cones provide color vision, daylight. When the light is abundant, cones will be activated. When the light is less, dim light vision, we use it to say rods, black and white vision. We can say black and white. That means with the rods you can't see that colors. Here is a very good example. Here we can say at the during night time at 7:38 or night time, whatever the time it is, that during that particular time when the power is gone, when the power is gone, everything seems to be dark, isn't it? Completely dark. When the power is gone, what happened at the time? Did you imagine what happened at the time? Why everything is dark? And now again, when the power comes, before the power comes, when the power gone, everything is dark. But within 2 to 3 minutes, within the 2 to 3 minutes, we will able to see that at least a little object, something is there like that. Within 2 3 minutes, we'll able to see that particular object. Can you explain this with the help of these two cells? Cones provide color vision. Rods are helpful in dim light vision. Yes. See this. We are talking about human beings even. Cones and rods. That whatever there in a frog eye, in our eye also the same. What a frog sees, we see the same. But how we understand that matters. We have a good brain. That's a object which is there in front of us. We'll see and we'll analyze and we'll able to understand more than the frog. Okay, our cerebral hemispheres are much folded with gyri and sulci. So cones and rods, that means when the light is abundant, you can see the objects clearly, you can see the object color clearly, likewise. Okay, when power is gone, what I said, that cones cannot work. That's why for a period of time, you can see that everything is not, that means complete dark. But that when the little bit light present here, during power is gone, even that there is a moonlight you can see, the little bit light, that using that little bit light, rods is going to be activated. Okay, that's why after 2 3 minutes, we'll able to see the object, something is moving like at least. Okay, you can't see colors at the time, everything black. So rods are helpful in dim light vision. Ears is useful for hearing. Ears are going to be useful for hearing. And balance. Statoacoustic organ. We use it to say the ears as statoacoustic organ. What is statoacoustic organ? Stato means balance. Acoustic means hearing. So the ear consists of a middle ear closed externally by a large tympanic membrane, ear drum, and a columella oris. We are talking about tympanum and a middle ear portion called columella oris, which columella that transmit the tympanum to the columella oris, the vibrations which are going towards the internal ear. The inner ear consists of utriculus with 3 semicircular canal and sacculus. Utriculus and sacculus, which are at the base of semicircular canals. You can see utriculus and sacculus. Which utriculus and sacculus collectively called vestibule. They are helpful for the balance. Okay, so it seems to be little blur. That means nervous system, endocrine system of the frog, which will land in the form of integrating system, a little blur. That means here we don't get clarity after the completion of this chapter, this topic. Why? Because we don't have detailed information of this particular area. Just the namesake, they just said the names, that's all. But when we discuss about the human neural control and coordination, chemical control and coordination, then we'll understand this particular area. Okay. So now simply to remember here, in case of nervous system, there are three: central nervous system and peripheral nervous system and autonomous nervous system. Let me say you once again that number one, central nervous system. Next, number 2, peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system. Okay, so peripheral nervous system. Next, autonomous nervous system. We can say autonomous nervous system. Okay, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and autonomous nervous system. Central nervous system include brain and spinal cord. The central nervous system include brain and spinal cord. Okay. So that's I'm writing here the brain and spinal cord. Next, peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system include nerves from the brain called as cranial nerves, nerves from the spinal cord called as spinal nerves, nerves from the brain, cranial nerves, nerves from the spinal cord, the spinal nerves. We can say spinal nerves, the cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Autonomous nervous system include sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Just the namesake we have seen, that's all. And in the brain, we said olfactory lobe, cerebral hemisphere, cerebrum, diencephalon are parts of forebrain. Midbrain, midbrain include a pair of optic lobes, corpora bigemina we say. Hindbrain, cerebellum and medulla oblongata, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. Okay, next the peripheral nerve system. In case of peripheral nervous system, so in case of peripheral nervous system, cranial nerves which are from the brain and spinal nerves from the spinal cord. Cranial nerves from the brain and spinal nerves from the spinal cord. Autonomous nervous system includes sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And what we said that in case of the sense organs, not much developed here. Eyes and ears are only organized structure. Remaining are just the nerve cell ending, aggregation of the cells with some neurons. That's what you say, aggregation of cells with some neurons. So that not much developed, you have to understand. Okay. So that's it about the brief history of nervous system as well as the sensory area, sense organs, and let's talk about some questions. Let us discuss about some questions here. Chalo, let's take some questions. Rods and cones are present in
Retina.
Yeah, they are the parts of retina. Who is nictitating membrane? Very important, I said over the foldable
Lower eyelids have nictitating membrane.
Yeah, very good, very good. The dash is useful for hearing and balance. Oh my god.
Here.
Okay. Question should be asked like this. Who is the statoacoustic organ? That means here, statoacoustic organ. So that's it about the neural control and coordination, chemical control and coordination, which is not much developed in case of fry.